everyone, I'm Kusha.
I'm Rajiv.
And in this week's episode of Policy and Chill, we're going to be talking about 3 major headlines that came by this week. The first thing is Khairy contesting in Selangor. How will this change anything for Selangor, for Harapan, for Khairy himself? And the second thing we're going to be talking about is has Harapan been very unfair to MIC and MCA in the seat negotiations? Well, I have very interesting questions lined up, but we'll dive into that shortly. And the last thing we're going to be talking about is that SUARAM has very boldly released a statement that if Anwar Ibrahim doesn't follow through his human rights promises, he might end up being the worst Prime Minister. And they actually said it in their statement.
Yeah, they did.
He might end up being the worst Prime Minister.
Ever,
worst Prime Minister of Malaysia. In my opinion, competition is stiff for worst PM. I'm not saying Anwar Ibrahim is the best PM, he's godly,
right.
But the worst is, it's a huge word to put on somebody just like that.
Yeah.
Given that Malaysia has had several other PMs who have been convicted criminals. But yeah, okay, so let's dive into the first issue. Khairy in Selangor. So Khairy announced that he might be contesting in Selangor, and he's very interested to contest in Selangor because it might be where he might restart his political career. All this while he's been in Rembau, Negeri Sembilan, and given Selangor's urban composition, he's very interested in the state. So, if Khairy does actually end up contesting in Selangor, what do you think this means to Khairy? He's becoming from a minister to potentially an Adun or an Exco or even MB, but so far there's no confirmation that the MB-ship has been offered to him.
Alright. But who might offer it to him?
Maybe Perikatan.
Maybe Perikatan Bersatu, yeah. So I think what this means for for Khairy is that his Keluar Sekejap podcast may come to an end quite soon because he may masuk semula quite soon. But the challenge for Khairy is what party is he going to contest under? And it looks like it's only Bersatu if contesting in Selangor is the next move for Khairy, which means he has to become a member of Bersatu. And with our anti-hopping law, it means that that's kind of where he's going to be locked in for the next 5 years, or 4.5 years. And that will also limit his freedom to, say, open up a new party like Muda did, or to do
but he said he's not interested in opening a new party. He thinks we have
too much parties in the country.
Yeah,
but then again, he's aspiring to be Prime Minister. So if he goes into...
He's kind of telling it, isn't it? He's like, I'm not going to start a new party, but I want to be Prime Minister one day.
Yeah. So if he wants to go back into UMNO one day, if he's waiting his time and he wants to see whether Zahid may leave because of his conviction, or Zahid may leave for any other reason, and the scenario in UMNO changes and he can make a re-entry to UMNO, which he has said a number of times since his expulsion that is the party that he loves.
It also seems the way he's leading.
Yeah. That kind of closes the door on him going back to UMNO if he takes up Adun ship in Selangor under the Bersatu ticket. That kind of makes it really possible for him to go back into UMNO. It also makes it difficult for him to start a new party, just covered that, which also then begs the question, how is he going to make his way into a prime ministership in this Perikatan tent? Can he find his way upwards? Because first of all, he has to navigate Bersatu. He has to win over the hearts and minds of all the grassroots in Bersatu and decide whether they will accept him over Muhyiddin, or they'll accept him as number 3 or number 4 until Muhyiddin retires. You got to deal with Azmin Ali, you got to deal with Hamza.
But Azmin is so quiet. Khairy contesting in Selangor is making headlines more than Azmin, the previous MB of Selangor, contesting.
Azmin's quietness is his quietness, but are they letting anything go in Bersatu? I don't think these two guys are going to say you know what, Khairy, come, take over. Become number 2 after us. Right? Bersatu's actual number 2, Peja is not quite really number 2, so I think we can put that aside. Okay. So it's down to what will Azmin do about Khairy's entry. Will he embrace Khairy? Will he be stabbing Khairy in the back non-stop from day one? What will Hamza do?
For all we know, he's the one who opened the door to Khairy.
Yeah, so then what, are they willing to step back and let Khairy leapfrog them? Yeah. Alright, and that will probably be the only way. But then Khairy also has to find a way to make good with PAS. Yeah. And to really make good with PAS, if he is going to be the leader of all of Perikatan one day. And that doesn't sound like Khairy's cup of tea, but maybe in his next podcast he would like to answer that, like how does he plan to navigate that? Because if he doesn't do that, then the question of what happens to Khairy is Khairy becomes mid-tier leader, and he's kind of locked into mid-tier leader for the next 10 years. Because if he can't win over PAS, he can't win the leadership of Bersatu, or if he wins the leadership of Bersatu, then makes Bersatu number 2 to PAS, then Khairy's mid-tier leadership for the foreseeable future. So this ambition of being Prime Minister, good for you, bro. Keep up the ambition of being Prime Minister. I think it's better served waiting for his time to go back into UMNO and using the UMNO platform to try to achieve that. Even starting a new party, a new movement in order to try to achieve that. But these two options become really like closed door if he joins.
Okay, that's about Khairy, but Bersatu inviting Khairy into their tent. What is their thinking? What is their thoughts?
I think Bersatu is a big party. It has lots and lots of leaders, and enough leaders would want someone like Khairy, who has enough popularity and stature to come in. Because Khairy coming in will definitely attract someone of attention to contest in Selangor, someone of new support, someone of fan seaters. So I can fully understand a lot of leaders in Bersatu being happy. Now, if I was an ordinary Adun contesting under the Perikatan ticket in the upcoming Selangor elections, I'd be happy that Khairy is coming in. He makes the whole Perikatan lineup look better. So a lot of people in Perikatan will welcome it. But if he comes in, it means he's going to threaten someone. Now, if he's going to come in and say like, I want to be the MD candidate, then somebody else has to step back from being the MD candidate. That someone might be Azmin, and so is Azmin ready to like take a back seat to him? What about in the national picture? You know, Hamza is now the opposition leader in Parliament. He's been playing a very big role from the Sheraton move onwards, and quite the string puller in Bersatu. And what's his role going to be when Khairy is around? Because I don't think Khairy is going to be subservient to him. So the people at nearly the top may be threatened. People at the very top, Muhyiddin Yassin, probably feels good about this because he's never going to contest in Selangor. He's the supreme leader. But people in the second tier might be threatened by Khairy. But people in the third tier would love Khairy coming in because it helps them win their seats in the third tier. So this is going to be the change of dynamic in.
Do you think this would be Perikatan's attempt to appear more secure?
It is an attempt
inviting
to appear secure.
Khairy.
But guess what happens when you do that? Then what is PAS Selangor's response to this? Because when PAS Selangor feels that they're good friends with Azmin and they get a fair shot at Azmin, so they don't have to make much demands on paper. Like, you know, we don't have to bang tables down and discuss how many expos we're going to share among us, what portfolios we can take in the government. But if Khairy is the Menteri Besar candidate, then suddenly PAS Selangor may become a bit more like, is Khairy going to run the state ignoring us? Because, you know, we know Khairy doesn't really love PAS. Azmin loves PAS. Khairy doesn't really
Azmin
love
always has.
So PAS may be a bit insecure, and they'll be right to be insecure, and they'll be right to demand some things ahead of time. And so this will put some tension in the PAS Bersatu relationship at Selangor level. I don't think this will affect the national Bersatu PAS relationship as much, but at the Selangor level it will affect some of it. So it will rock the boat a bit. It will make a lot of candidates happy because it adds more credibility to their lineup, or it adds more secularism to the lineup. So I think the Perikatan candidates in the urban areas might love this this addition, but overall the second tier, the second top leaders may be a bit cautious about this, and so the offer is not quite concrete, and I guess we'll see in the next few weeks how it plays out.
Okay, let's say that Khairy is offered the ambition, and Khairy is contesting against our Harapan MD candidate, Dato Sri Amiruddin Syari. Do you think this changes much for Harapan? Do you think when it's Khairy versus our candidate, do you think this will swing the urban votes?
Yes and no. I mean, like, yes, it will swing some urban vote. I think across the board, some amount of fan seaters will go to Harapan. But I think what the last G has shown, that even in Sungai Buloh, when the Harapan candidate was laced with allegation after allegation, dragged through the mud quite a bit, Khairy still could not defeat him. So
but Khairy reported he was very happy with the support he received in Sungai Buloh, and he's
while he was very
encouraging.
happy, I don't think he was very happy because I remember watching the videos of his frustration
I remember
and losing Sungai Buloh. So I don't know. I think he's frustrated. He did keluar sekejap, but he will not face an easy time winning. So this will affect. It will affect. Across the board. There will be maybe a low percentage, but a percentage of fence-sitters may decide to give Khairy a chance.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the non-Malay support will remember that a vote for Perikatan is a vote for a very Islamic government, as the whole Perikatan image has been since the last general election, and I think it's going to be difficult for Khairy to swing over non-Malay support anywhere he contests. Would Khairy be able to swing over Malay support? I think among the more technocratic young Malays, the more technocratic, more professional Malays, I think yes. That's where the threat may lie, but across the board, it may. I think the ones that they've got over, they've already got over.
Okay.
And the ones that are with Harapan are normally with Harapan for good reason. And I think it's not so easy to switch those guys. So the Malays that are supporting for Harapan, while not the biggest chunk in the country, may not be so easy to switch. So I think Harapan will still fare okay with Khairy contesting. I think it's going to be a tough elections ahead, and
actually it's going to be tough whether Khairy contests.
Whether Khairy contests or not is going to be tough, and I think Harapan can still prevail, will still prevail in Selangor, despite the tough competition, including if Khairy is part of it.
Yeah.
So I welcome not just Khairy but anyone else who wants to contest. I think this is our democratic space.
Yeah.
Definitely campaign strategies will adjust depending on who joins the fray, but I think the 15 years of what Harapan has been doing in Selangor speaks for itself. I think we need to remind people what we have done in the last 15 years and what we stand for, and why we should still continue for 5 more years.
Okay. And we're moving on to our next topic. Has Harapan been unfair to MIC and MCA in its seat negotiations? Now, what's the issue?
Recently, the Penang MCA chief, Tan Teck Cheng, raised concerns about not being part of the seat negotiations. Now, so we have known that Anwar has announced it, different top leaders of various parties have made it known that seat negotiations for the 6 state elections have started. And as what our MCA Penang chief has pointed out, they have not been part of it. Likewise, MIC seems to also have not been part of it. Immediately, the BN UMNO chief, Musa Sheikh Fadzeh, replied to say that, yes, you wait first. You hang in there. Round 1, we will talk first, and round 2, you'll come in.
Isn't it wrong to say that? Round 1, we'll talk first, round 2, you come in.
I think this is not surprising to a lot of our listeners out there. I think for decades we have all come to know and expect MC and MIC to be the backseat player in Barisan National, and UMNO being the really abang over there. So it's not a partnership of equals in the end. It's not been a partnership of equals.
To be fair to UMNO, they always give their seats to MIC and MCA. Like MIC and MCA cannot contest in their majority race. They are a race-based party. They can't win in seats that their race is the majority.
Yeah.
So as much as they big bro and kind of bully them, they also do give them seats.
Yeah. So the situation is not surprising. The statements are not surprising, but I think on Harapan's side, I think it's a good move to negotiate the seats. We should learn from the mistakes of Bersatu and UMNO in the Sabah state election that kind of put big fractures in the federal coalition back then. The Sheraton Move post coalition between UMNO, Bersatu, PAS. So we should learn from that, and since we want to maintain our federal government, our unity government at the federal level, I think these parties that are forming the unity government at the federal level should not contest against each other in the states. Even if their missionary doesn't help each other, even if PKR members are not hanging BN flags or BN members hanging DAP flags, and each one is just taking care of their own seats. What's important is we don't fight each other. We give no reason to any of our leaders from the top level to the mid level having to say anything bad against each other, on stage, off stage, in front of the media, or even behind closed doors. And so for these 6 states, I think it's quite important that we go in with the seats negotiated so that we will never clash. And we will do a direct fight with Perikatan, one-to-one. No doubt there'll be a lot of smaller parties that will also take part in this election, as they have done so in the last few general elections. That's okay. But the main battle will probably come down to the unity government versus Perikatan, the federal opposition. Yeah, so in these seat negotiations, the two biggest parties in Peninsula, because the 6 states going through elections are in Peninsula, is basically Harapan and BN. Whether BN chooses to include MCA&MIC, it's BN's call. But for now, I think it's what's important. It's Harapan and BN sort it out. And I think a good principle is like the seats that you currently hold, you hold. The seats in the middle, which are basically the Perikatan seats, the Bersatu and the PAS seats. That's the seats that we should be discussing. Which one BN will fight, which one we will fight, and so that we go into elections with a straight fight without having to shoot each other.
Okay, the next issue we're discussing, SUARAM calling Anwar potentially the worst PM if he doesn't follow through his human rights promises. Rajiv, what do you think of this sweeping statement that Anwar might be the worst PM?
I think definitely not. By no measure, Anwar may not live up to all of SUARAM's ideals. Anwar will not live up to all the NGOs' ideals, and I think we'll go past this as we go down the next few minutes. But like, no way is he the worst Prime Minister. But I think this is one of the challenges you face. Sometimes you have the highest expectation on your friends, and when your friends don't live up to your highest expectations, you're just hurt and disappointed.
Yeah. Okay.
So was SUARAM fair to say that has the unity government been too slow to tackle reforms?
Okay, I think it's two different things. Let's separate it. First of all, was SUARAM fair to say that? In my opinion, absolutely no. I'm not someone to put Anwar Ibrahim on a pedestal. I'm not going to say he's godlike. I'm not going to say, wow, he's the PM and we should support every single initiative he does. In fact, I have my own opinions of certain things he's doing that I feel like we could have done that better. But moving on from that, slapping the label on someone to be the worst Prime Minister ever is a very strong sentence. It's a very hard language being used. And is this the best way for a CSO to effectively communicate? So what happened was, actually SUARAM launched the annual report. But them calling Anwar potentially the worst Prime Minister ever, took away all the attention away from the report that they launched, the Human Rights Report, which is noble work that they've been doing, to is Anwar the worst Prime Minister or not? And so when initially the statement came out on Twitter through BFM, you can see many of the people who are replying BFM's tweet is like, yeah bro, worst is a bit of a long shot. People are not to say like, oh, Anwar's the best PM, but people are like, yeah, worst is a long shot. We had Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, we had Ismail Sabri, we had a lot of people who failed us, and worst is really truly a long shot. So I really think SUARAM has been unfair, and I think they should be a bit more their statements can be there was no need to alienate with the administration. It was not like the administration was not open to working with them. But by saying this, they have kind of alienated the Anwar Ibrahim administration, which he replied to their accusation, and he told them to be more objective in their thing. Okay, but here's the thing, right? Has the unity government become too slow in tackling reforms? I would like to bring us back to 2018 when we tried to ratify ICERT in Malaysia, and what happened. So what happened was, there was Dr. Mahathir read his speech in Parliament, like this is what we're going to do with ICERT, we're going to rectify it, and Khairy, today we're really talking quite a bit about him, but yeah, he was the one who replied in Parliament saying that, oh, this is going to take away the special rights of the Malays, this is going to take away the Bumiputra rights. So ICERT has been recognized in 179 countries, in 179 countries in the world. It is something the United Nations has as its core values, and we were going to, we're going to pledge to all of it, and ICERT is just one of the things. And by not ratifying ICERT, we are joining countries like North Korea, Myanmar, Angola, Bhutan, Brunei, and South Sudan. These are the only countries, including Malaysia, that has not ratified ICERT. And so, naturally when Harapan came into the government, people in the government were like, yeah, we have to go and step up and ratify to all of UN's ideals, and we were going in that direction. But what happened was, when this comment, could ICERT take away Malay rights? Could ICERT take away the Bumiputra rights? And ICERT actually does allow for affirmative action and race-based policies, but once the race has caught up, then you have to remove it. But a lot of countries have provided to have ratified to ICED, but have a very special provision. Like, for example, the Sharia law is above ICED. So no matter what ICED says, and no matter what in the ICED articles, like what the rules say, the Sharia law is superior to it. So a lot of Muslim countries in the world have ratified. Only 2 Muslim countries have not. Muslim majority countries, Malaysia and Brunei, have not. But other Muslim countries in the world have done it, and some of them have put this Sharia law as the number one thing. But when we see what Harapan tried to do in 2018 with ICED was, yes, we are leading our human rights.
How did you feel about
reform and initiative? I felt when Harapan was leading it, I was quite happy, because that's the right.
Did you know about ICED before Harapan opened its mouth about
No.
it? You didn't know it existed?
No.
How about your friends? Did your friends know it existed?
No.
Okay, so largely Malaysians did not know ICED existed in the world until.
Or didn't know so many countries have subscribed to it. Like we are in the
until Harapan started the ball rolling on it.
Yeah, so we all didn't know what it was, but when it was introduced, I was like, yeah, cool. Cool. Sure.
Why was it cool?
Because it's like, we're finally catching up. A lot of countries have signed up. It's about time for us to sign up.
Okay.
Because by not signing up, we're joining countries that are much.
Maybe for those who are missing out, what exactly are we signing up to? What does signing up to ICED mean?
So ICED is basically eliminating racial discrimination.
And that's something that means a lot to you, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is something that means a lot to me. As someone who comes from a minority Tamil-speaking background, I have often felt like I have been discriminated, and I have seen my peers feel discriminated in a country as we live our day-to-day lives. And so, a huge. See, I didn't think ICED was going to end racial discrimination, but I felt it was the right step forward in the right direction to say hey, all races are important to us, and we should not discriminate. No one is better than. No, not one race is better than the other.
Absolutely. And so how did you feel when Khairy said what he said and started the ball rolling? How did you feel about that?
Well, when Khairy said what he said, actually I didn't know Khairy said what he said.
Okay.
I didn't pay attention. The news that came in my Twitter was not like that.
Okay, what was it like?
All I knew was the government was going to sign for ICED, and suddenly I heard of a protest, and I was like, there's a protest against ICED. I remember thinking, I wonder how big will this protest be? Will it be the scale of birthday? Remember when we had birthday, we were flooding the streets with that much yellow t-shirts. Is it going to be that scale? Or is it just going to be people who are loud and unhappy, but the number is going to be little? I remember thinking that at first. Is this concern that ending racial discrimination, which is in my opinion 2 very separate things, taking away special privileges and ending racial discrimination is 2 very separate things.
Okay.
I'm not about abolishing the special rights, and actually in my head this equation did not make sense. It did not make sense to me that you will not racially discriminate against races equal to you will take away the Bumiputra rights.
Right.
In my head, it did not compute at that time. So at that time when the protest was being formed and everyone was I felt like maybe the government did not engage all these 222 MPs. So all these people would have had leaders, and all these people would have turned to their leaders first. When I see something wrong in our area, in Bukit Kasing for example, people turn to you and people ask you, hey, why is this happening? Why is Harapan doing this? Whether you are in the decision making level or not, you as an adult will get the question, why is Harapan doing this? And oftentimes, the way you answer them is how they will answer their friends and family, and how their friends and family will answer their friends and family. So the answer that they get from their representative is also quite important. So 300,000 people attended this protest against ICED. And that means something was said to invoke in them. So when we rally for Bersih, when we go for other rallies, I feel very strongly that we should be against corruption. I am here for a clean government.
Okay.
So these 200 people also came that they don't want their Malay rights and their special privileges to be taken away because of ICED.
Okay.
But is it because when they turn to their political leaders because Malaysia as a country did not have a deep understanding of ICED. We don't know what it is, we don't know what it means, but when we turn to our leader to ask them questions, what could this mean for us? Could it have been that their leaders didn't know how to communicate back? Or could it have been that their leaders rode on the racial sentiment? So when they started feeling concerned and they started raising the concern to their leaders, they're like, good opportunity to whack the Harapan government. So in my opinion, Khairy was very opportunistic to stir the racial sentiment. it literally says eliminate racial discrimination.
Yeah, so it's something that everyone should aspire to.
Yeah.
It's why we join politics.
It's why we join politics, yeah.
It's one of the things that we both care very much about.
Yeah. And so the fact that these 300,000 people felt so deeply concerned, and the government either did not engage with all 222 MPs across the board, or the opposition just had the opportunity. They saw the racial wave sweeping through with this ISET concert, and they used it, and the more they used it, the more they stoked the flame instead of proper communication. So I think this is a mistake that we don't want to repeat in this unity government, because at that time it was a Harapan-led government. So it was like, oh, okay, someone wants to do it, so we follow the big boss. Like, there was no negotiations, there was no rundingan. In fact, I bet the Harapan MPs didn't sit together and think, whether should we do this or should we not do this. Nobody sat together and nobody thought of anything. But if ISET was something that was discussed across all political parties, what if Harapan brought its agenda and brought it to BN and brought it to PAS and brought it to everyone? We want to end racial discrimination. What are you concerned about? And if they tell us we are concerned about the Malay rights and the special privilege, fine, let's put in a provision that protects that.
Okay.
But as a country, we should sign up to be against racial discrimination. But the failure of that points to how the government just kind of pushed through its agenda of the day, and how the government pushing through its agenda of the day stoked a whole political whirlwind, which I think is what is lasting until now. That's how it started, and until now it's been stoked, and until now this racial tension remains that started with the ISET protest. And I think this is the unity government is not too slow to tackle reforms in this case, because it's not being too slow, it's just building consensus. And now more than ever, see, at that time it was just a Harapan-led government. Now we also have BN as our partner in the unity government. We can't just push through something we think is right. We need to build consensus between the political parties. And if we don't build consensus, we're just going to be like, the government is going to fall and the government is going to fail. And we're going to fail on so many other bigger picture things because we couldn't have built consensus. And so I wish sometimes the CSOs will understand that the process of building consensus is not easy. And in fact, they can actually
be part of it.
Be part of building this consensus. So, now, Rajiv. Building consensus is not something I have learned or felt deeply with all my life. I kind of just do what I want, but it's something that you have taught me that, ask people what they feel and just ask them, maybe they'll feel okay, maybe they will not feel okay, and you can address their pain point. Maybe, the negotiation, the small thing that I'm giving up for them to feel better is like, it's worth the smooth sailing relationship. Why is it important to build consensus?
Well, it's just that I think when you are the governing party, if you have consensus among yourself, that's the first layer, then you move forward peacefully. Because if you don't have consensus among your own group, then you risk having a lot of fraction, infighting, and that's never really good in moving forward. Your ship is just going to be rocky all the way. So you want to build consensus within your own camp. You want to make sure that every one of your MPs are on board, all the political parties in this unity government is on board before you move forward. If possible, build consensus with society. That's like a bigger level, a deeper level. Build consensus with the opposition that minimizes the political rhetoric that will appear in and out of parliament.
And to be fair to UMNO, they are not the only one who used the sentiment that the people were against. Like they used the racial sentiment, Harapan, we used the GST when
if it takes a bit of time to build the consensus, you get everyone on board when you actually table that reform in parliament, because most of the significant reforms involve a change of law. So you're going to table something in parliament. Either you're going to change the constitution, you're going to change a law, you're going to repeal a law, you're going to amend certain sections of a law, and all of this involves one day tabling in parliament. Now the thing is, when you table in parliament, are you going to table it smoothly, or are you going to create a lot of protests on the streets, a lot of infighting within your own party, and that may cause you to pull back what you've tabled? Then you've just created a lot of unhappiness, a lot of chaos, and not achieved anything.
And to be fair, a lot of government energy spent on something that may not be able to be passed on the day of.
So building this consensus is important. I think what they've done with the death penalty, when in Harapan 1.0, amending the laws on the mandatory death penalty did not see the light of day. It had so much opposition. 80% of the country is against it. Opposition parties wrote on it. Wee Ka Siong, I remember how he fought to keep the death penalty. But this time around, they put all the parties together, they spent their time negotiating, and we've actually passed the amendments to the necessary laws to take away mandatory death penalty. Now death penalty is no longer mandatory for all the crimes that it used to be mandatory. So that's an example of how it can go. So the reforms can happen.
It is not abolishing the death penalty, but we abolished the mandatory death penalty.
It was also the case in Harapan 1.0. So, but we couldn't get that done in Harapan 1.0. We got it done in Harapan 2.0. So the point is, if you build a consensus, then you can get it done. If you in building consensus, sometimes you just can't get the consensus, and you have to let that issue take a backseat unless you feel there's enough capital, enough political capital to just push it through and push it down people's throat. But I think equally important is to get the public buy-in. Now, if you get the public buy-in, that's the biggest hurdle you can overcome. Political parties will not really rise against an issue if the public at large buys into it, and that's something that I guess Anwar should be mindful of. I think the current cabinet should be very mindful of. We have a lot of things that are close to our hearts. For years and years in politics, before we reached the position of being a cabinet member, we fought for so many things. Something kept the fire alive, something kept the passion alive. It could be to end racial discrimination, it could be fighting some human rights violation, it could be fighting some environmental battle. Something kept each cabinet member's fire alive, but if they rush too fast to implement reforms without getting the buy-in of everyone else, that reform may be stillborn. Yep. Right? So I wish Anwar and the cabinet all the best. He does have a large expectation set that he has set for himself throughout the years that he's been opposition leader.
Throughout these years, he thought he'll be the prime minister with Harapan being his.
Yeah.
The situation of now working with a new coalition that we have not. Yeah. Harapan has not worked with UMNO, even though Anwar has experience of being in UMNO. The Harapan government has not worked with UMNO.
So as I was saying, Anwar has this large shoes to fill in the expectations that he has done. I wish him all the best in negotiating with all the component parties in his administration to get, not all, I think that may be too high a bar to set, but to get significant enough of reforms done to show that his prime ministership has been successful in pushing forward his agenda for reform in this country, something which not just he subscribes to, but millions of Malaysians subscribe to.
So I'm just going to read something from Anwar's statement. He says that we have seen the blunder made with the rectification of ISET, and he remains committed to human rights, but you have to give us time. And I'm glad he's assuring everybody he's committed to the cause. He's not running away from it. He's not saying like, oh, this is not the agenda for the next 5 years. Yeah. But he's saying, give it time. We don't want to make political blunders. Right. And I think that's him, in my opinion, being very careful and clever, because we're never getting a very racially fired up Malaysians now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay, and that's it for today's episode of Policy and Chill, and we will see you again next week.
And if you have questions, please write into us, comment on us, and we'll try to pick it up
in
the next show.
Alright, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.